Destiny desu. So I'm back with another video. This happened last night while I was on Twitch streaming my writing for Ball of Nothing with Momocat and a couple of other people. And this is what happened. So there is this new writer who joined me for an unplanned interview on Discord's voice call with the author, web novel author channel, and his name is Vongrak. He's fairly new. Do check him out. I'll put the description, the links in the description to his book. So he writes a book that's titled D.E.M.O.N.S in an acronym form, and it's pretty interesting. He was talking about it. So without further ado, these are some of the highlights for last night. Someone is on Discord. What? Vongrak. Is that how I pronounce it? Nice. Are you writing now as well?
I'm one of the authors.
Ah, okay, that's great. Because usually I stream some nights and I write at the same time.
Indeed, I just saw your message and thought I'd say hello.
Oh.
I probably won't stick around much longer than 20 minutes. I used to write 3,000 words a day, and I could probably go back to doing it now that I'm less busy, but I find that it takes me exponentially longer the more words that I have rather than just a bit longer. So for the 3,000 words, I was looking at more like 4 hours, but 1,500 words, which I've been doing more recently, only takes me like an hour. At the moment, really, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to be doing. So I've just finished my university degree.
Oh, congratulations. You must be quite young.
Yes, on the younger side of things. So I've just finished that, and though in my last semester, I was only doing 2 subjects because I only had 2 left. So I wanted to fill in the spare time, and I ended up writing a novel for that spare. And now I'm not really sure what I want to do because with everything that's going on, it's not the easiest to find marketing jobs, which is that was what I went to university for. And I enjoy writing. I had sort of tried a bit in the past, but I'll talk about that a bit later. And yeah, it's just for me, it's like, do I want to commit more heavily to the whole writing thing? Because it's not, for me at least, it's like I don't know. I don't necessarily need a ton of money, but I'm not sure that I'm good enough at writing to make any money. So it's a question of is it something that's worth committing more time and effort to, or should I just commit more time and effort to finding work elsewhere? Well, the story that I'm writing is intended to be for the Spirity Awards that they have running at the moment, so I did sign the exclusive contract, but I'm not too fussed about that, at least. I was pretty happy to commit with this story. Originally, I didn't have grand plans for it, and it's kind of funny how it happened. I tried writing a bit in the past, and I kind of got stuck. I got a few chapters in, and I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go from there, and then I got busy, and I just dropped it. This time I was like, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to commit to finishing this. I didn't care how long it was. I just wanted to write it and finish it. So I write the first few chapters. Didn't really care. And I got sent an email, and Webnovel was like, Spirity Awards right now. And I'm like, I'm not subscribed to you. This isn't an email that I have listed on your site. How did I get this and why? And I was like, you know what? Let's just see how this goes. And so I committed to that. So I've got an extra month's worth of chapters in case I really want to do something. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to commit to web novel, but I did for now at least. I have 2 other stories that I care about a bit more. I mean, maybe that's not the right word. I have this story that I'm writing. As much as I enjoy writing it, I'm writing it more as a challenge to myself than because it's a story I wanted to tell, if that makes sense. It was a story that came from an interesting idea that I had, and I didn't really have grand hopes for it or a big thing planned out. And for me, I thought about it for a while because that was the big thing. Everyone was like, "Well, you sign over like all of the rights forever," and they're like very clear, very very clear. They're like, "We own all the rights, all of them." So I thought about that for a while, and I ultimately came to the conclusion that like I didn't really care. You know, I get a cut if they do anything else with it. I don't plan to write a sequel, and I'm not as attached to it as maybe I should be. That was the decision. I enjoy sort of philosophical fiction. I haven't read any of your stuff. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but I've really enjoyed stuff by SME. It's a difficult question. It's 2:30 a.m. So
What?
well, look. I mean, I don't know. Is that morning or night? It's a good question. I don't know. I'm undecided.
Okay. You like in Australia or something? Because that timing is kind of
Yeah,
weird.
that's correct. That's interesting. I tend to find that for whatever reason, I just haven't quite got that accent. Most of the people that I talk to think I sound British, which neither is correct. I've lived here my entire life. Yeah, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure what it is, I never really picked up the accent. I'm afraid I can't say I share your passion for BL, but I mean, I can respect. I'm writing a fantasy. I managed to make a story that's actually is maybe not the easiest to describe. I'm writing like something that's half fantasy adventure, half comedy slice of life story. Story is called D.E.M.O.N.S as an acronym, and the premise is that the main character is someone who just lives on Earth and ends up as a demon. Half of it is them just hanging around with people they know from Earth, and then the other half is them going on adventures once a week when they get summoned for odd jobs and the like. Yeah, as far as I know, it's like a fairly original concept. I was somewhat surprised. Unlike writing, which I'm not going to say I'm the best at, reading is something that I can say I am very good at. I have read a truly shocking amount of stories, and probably every single thing that has demon related to it at the very least. I know that no one's done anything quite close. There's like one author that did something, I'm not going to say like extremely similar, but they seem to have like the same idea of having the main character be a demon and then get summoned for things occasionally, but they went much heavier into the action route. They also made like Earth a place where there was like a bunch of different factions as well. They did the whole there's like a hidden world of magic users on Earth, and then they also got summoned for stuff. You know, it was action on Earth and action being summoned, but that author dropped the story after like 20 chapters, and I'm like, no, this was so interesting and I'm offended. So I was like, I can do this and I can do it better. So I did. I don't necessarily think my version is better, but I committed to the story at the very least. I actually edit a bunch of things. I guess that's a thing that I didn't mention. I edit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 books. I'm an editor for like 9 books, something like that. I just picked it up for the fun of it, mostly. I have a female lead, and I ended up making the type of demon my main character is a succubus. But my favorite kind of succubuses are ones that are bad at their job and they're just not sexy at all. So there is none of that in my story. It is adorable, and that is the true way. That is the true path. Cat might be a succubus, but if you want to get something done, just have Sylvie smile at them. It's way more effective. So I have fun with that. Not really. As I said, I kind of know the author of Nanomancer Reborn because I work with them. I do edit a few series. I don't know if you'd say friends per se, but I'm in contact with a few other authors just from my editing work. I don't know. I wouldn't I'd say acquaintances for the most part. I don't know. I'd have to find out. I used to do taekwondo, so that was warm-ups. But despite having done sport for a shockingly large portion of my teenage life, I was never good at any of them. Not a single one. And my stamina was horrible. Still is. How do you manage to think up ideas for so many stories? For 5?
Will you believe me if I told you I was born with stories in my head? I didn't have to think of them. I just have to bring it over because I live in them.
I'd believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some people talk that way. Some people I knew in high school, and I'd seen some of the stuff they wrote, so I can definitely understand that. I don't think I've possessed that ability though. I managed to write day after day, and it shocks me that I've gotten to 90 chapters still having content. You know, I couldn't figure something out a week ahead. As someone who reads a lot of stories, there are a few stories that really get you. You know, once they grab you, it's like, well, I'll just read this for a little bit longer, and you get swept up in the world, and then it's like, whoop, it's been 6 hours. May not have eaten lunch, but it was a good book, so it's fine. I read most of my stuff online these days, mostly because I don't have the best access to libraries. My current obsession is reading every fantasy novel ever published to Royal Road that has more than 800 pages worth of content. My bar for acceptable reading material is not very high, and a lot of people would be like, because you read novels online. It's like, no, it's because I've read everything in a library 3 times as I went through school. I have embers, candles, fireplaces, bonfires, pyres, infernos, and suns. That's the tiering system for my current. I've read a lot of fantasy stories, especially isekai, and you have bronze, silver, gold, and you get to gold straight away. Takes 10 chapters, and then you just get millions of gold, and it's like, what was the point? What was the point of the silver and the copper? You might as well have just had one currency. Mine's just base 10. So the names are funny, but it's just base 10. So it makes it real easy. It's just 100 of each of the increasing ones, except for the last 3, which are 1,000 and then 10,000. That time I got reincarnated as a vending machine, and now I am doomed to roam the dungeon. One of the first big gags that I have is, after this summoning stuff happens, we spend a few chapters going through. Everyone's panicking. No one really understands what's going on. And then the main character actually just asks the question, system, what are you talking about? And the system just gives an answer, and you're like, wait a minute, you could have just given me these answers? Yes. I guess I'll talk a bit about it. So there's a book that I tried to write. I still think I will one day write this. I sort of wanted to do literature RPG. I didn't necessarily want to go very literature RPG, but I did sort of want. I wanted a system, so I tried to go full literature RPG, and it was just pain. It was not fun. I don't enjoy writing with that sort of system. Doing the boxes for it was a pain. Figuring out what information was there was a pain. Figuring out how to manage stats was a pain around. And so when I ended up with a system in this one, I was like, let's just make it words. So the system in my story manifests itself as just a flaming wall of text, because everything demonic has to be on fire. So whenever it has anything to say, it just appears as flaming text, and it makes it so much more comfortable to write it because you can just write what it says. But it has also let me play around with syntax a bit. For example, it refers to the main character as user cat. Main character's name is Cat.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll know, and a thing to note is that regardless of where it is in a sentence, both user and cat are in capitals, or so other important things are always capitalized even though they shouldn't really be. And that's fun. When I say that the system will only refer to the main character as user cat, it's also instead of it or they, they won't use any sorts of pronouns for it. It's always the proper name, and it's interesting and fun to work with, to sort of give it the impression of it's a lot less conversational, which is how I want it to be. Most of these are hard coded. If I do go back to write those other 2 stories, I'll probably try to lean in that direction. Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the story that I'm writing right now. I haven't plotted out. My first experience writing a story, big air quotes with that one. I was doing an assessment that required me to iron a large number of canvas bags. Now, it was not the greatest decision, and it was not an enjoyable time, but for four days, I spent 14 hours ironing canvas bags. And to keep myself somewhat sane, I plotted out this story. And I took that experience, and then when I was like, you know what, I'm going to seriously consider writing a story over this university break. So I sat down and I started writing, and I plotted quite a lot of it out. I think I plotted all of the first. Well, I don't know exactly how many chapters it would have been, but I want to say the first 100-ish chapters. The first 3 arcs content and like most of the 4th as well. Never wrote most of them. Didn't do it. And so with this like 3rd one, the way it came about was just like one crazy idea. I was like, let's do this. Sounds fun. No plan. I was like, hey, we'll just do whatever. We'll just write a couple chapters, and if I get bored, we can just end the story somehow. I don't know. Maybe like something crazy happens. And I just like started, and I didn't plot anything out, and it is the longest series that I've written to date. So like maybe that's just better. I don't know. If you're writing it day by day, you can feel something start to drag a little bit. Like there was one section where I was like, okay, I should like wrap this section up, because it wasn't just like, obviously, you know, the chapters are only 1,500 words, so it wasn't actually like that much content. But I've been working on the section for like 2 weeks. Chapters are released daily. For those people who are releasing days, this is like, you know, 2 weeks. Spend 2 weeks on this thing. Normally, I try to think like a chapter ahead. Though I've had some interesting things come about as a consequence of this. I introduced this character called Vivian. I introduced them for one joke. The process was my character was trying to sneak into their friend's house because their best friend's parents are not the nicest people, and because the best friend had been studying at school with my main character, I should tell you their names. It's Kat and Lily. The main character is Kat, and Lily is the best friend. So because the pair of them had been studying together, Lily's parents are like, "No, you have to stay home this weekend and study," because that's just kind of the people they are. Kat was trying to endeavor to sneak in. So I needed a character just for the joke that they could rock up and be like, "Hey, do you reckon I can use your backyard to sneak into my best friend's house?" And for the character to be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So that was the joke. Was that the character just going to be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Who cares? Go for it." Contrary to what you'd expect. Like, no, what are you, crazy? Why would I let you do this? A reasonable response. So I developed this character, and originally it was an old man. I'm like, nope, that's my default character. I've done that too many times. So I made this character called Vivian, and I was like, yeah, sure. What's the worst that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is they ended up being a like super integral character to the rest of the story. I made this like super bubbly person who doesn't necessarily think things through all the way, but happens to be very successful anyway, so it doesn't matter. So they can just keep doing their nonsense. But because the main character of my book is an orphan, obviously the first response from someone like that when they find that out is they're like, "I will adopt you immediately." It's like, that's not how this is supposed to work. It's like, I don't care. But obviously this had like really changed sort of the pacing of the novel, because the setup that I had, the main character is 17. And when they turn 18, they have to move out of the orphanage, just because that's just the rule. The person in charge doesn't make those rules. That's just the rules. And so I was going to lean into the whole, like, they're doing all of these demon summoning, eventually, like, once they understand it, more so that they can, like, get money and then buy their own place. But this problem was instantly solved by this character I created for one joke. And I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this. And then my friend's like, "You're writing a comedy series." I'm like, "You're exactly right." And so I just decided it wasn't a problem. That they could just do that if they really wanted to. And it's like, let me go in a more interesting direction, which instead of focusing on that, I can now have my Earth chapters focusing on a few other things. And I got to make a crazy roommate for them as well, which was fun. I did the proper like funny man, straight man, which is like Vivian and their roommate Callisto. Vivian's just like, "Hey, so I've adopted 2 people," and their roommate's like, "Really? That's not how this is supposed to work. You can't just adopt people like they're lost puppies." It's like, joke's on you. I just did. I've had fun. I've had a lot of fun with that interaction. But yeah, I'd say that's like the big one. That's definitely the biggest one that I had. That was an unintended consequence, because it like completely changed like the direction of the novel in a lot of ways, or at least the direction of the Earth chapter. So it's not like I had no feedback, but like proper community comments, feedback, anything that they could say. It'd be a bit too late to immediately fix, so like maybe I'm like stuck on an arc and everyone's like, "This arc is terrible," and it's like, I'm sorry, but the next 20 chapters of that arc has already been written. So I suppose that's an interesting bit of trivia. My character doesn't have a last name, not because they don't have a last name, but because I never came up with it. I have like the character name, a brief description, and a chapter number if you need more details on them.
So that's all for the video, guys. This is Vongrak. Do remember to check him out and then subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. I spent 3 hours editing this, and yeah, the full session, it was like 1.5 hours. So thanks for watching, guys. It was a lot of work. I hope you liked it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
I was expecting that when you were working on 5 stories, you weren't quite so far into these 5 stories.
Ha ha ha.